Please silence all electronic devices for the duration of the meeting. Welcome to the October 21st, 2024 Finance and Audit Committee meeting. I am Councilmember Gil Schussler, and I am the Finance and Audit Committee Chair. The meeting format is hybrid. Quorum will be physically present at the HART Administrative Office, 1201 East 7th Avenue, Florida Conference Room. The rest of the board members are participating via communication media technology. Please look at your screens of your devices. An image of the flag is displayed. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Could you call roll, Danielle, please?
Yes, sir. Committee Member Hartfield?
Present.
Thank you. Committee Member King?
Present.
Committee Member Knight?
Present.
Committee Chair Schussler?
Here.
Committee Member Williams?
Here.
And you do have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we will now, public comment section, we will now accept public comment. No one signed up to speak, and is there anyone present in the audience this morning for public comment? Appearing to be none, this concludes the public input section of the meeting. In the packet of the minutes from the September 9th, 2024 Finance and Audit Committee meeting, I'm sure everybody's had a chance to read. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Who was the motion? Oh, I'm sorry. A motion by Director Knight, second by Director Williams. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Likewise, opposed, no. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Committee action items. On the agenda is item 4A, to recommend to the HART Board of Directors to authorize the CEO to award a 3-year task order-based contract with 2 one-year extension or options for general consultant services to Burns & McDonald Engineering Company, HNTB Corporation, Michael Baker International, Wendell Architecture PC, and WSP USA Inc. in a collective not-to-exceed amount of $5 million. There's a write-up and a proposed resolution for the action. Mr. Scott Drainville, as Chief Executive Officer, you're recognized to provide an overview of this item.
Thank you, Chair. So these firms under the task order-based contracts will provide professional services in the general areas of planning, service development, environmental clearance, architecture, engineering and construction management assistance. Task orders will be issued on an as-needed basis. The projects range from architectural and engineering services, agency operation functions, and the use of technology solutions, planning, capital project development, public engagement, and environmental compliance. Each task order will be reviewed and approved by myself. Funding for the first year of these contracts is allocated in the FY 2025 A&E contract or capital programs at $150,000, and in section 20005B, Transit Oriented Development Grant, TDP, FL-20005B-2021, and the FTA FL-2024-022 for $300,000, and ad valorem funds of $50,000. Future years' funding is contingent on the annual appropriations of this expenditure.
Okay, do committee members have any comments or questions for staff or Mr. Drainville?
No, for me.
Okay, any questions? Gary?
None.
Okay, very good. Okay, is there a motion then to recommend to the HART Board of Directors approval of items 4A and advance to the full HART Board of Directors on November 4th?
So moved.
Second? Do we have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next action item 4B. In your packets is a write-up and a proposed resolution for the committee to recommend to the HART Board of Directors to authorize the CEO to award a contract to MCS of Tampa for the boardroom audio-visual upgrade with a 5-year annual maintenance and monitoring agreement in the amount of $222,584 plus a contingency of $22,258 for a total not to exceed amount of $244,842. Mr. Drainville, you're recognized to provide an overview of this item.
So MCS of Tampa Incorporated will provide a fully integrated audiovisual equipment upgrade and maintenance for the EVO Administrative Office boardroom. This is including design, acquisition, and installation of equipment, warranties, maintenance, service, and training. So these are the upgrades for this room, where we hold all these board and committee meetings and public hearings. This will allow for a cleaner audio, switching recording meetings using a wide shot camera or audio only, ease of use, and have potential for future expansions or add-ons if needed. So the funding for the first year is allocated in the FY '25 capital projects, acquisition AV design and equipment, FL 5307P 2022. Future year fundings for the maintenance is contingent on the annual appropriations for this expenditure.
Okay, do committee members have any comments or questions for staff or Mr. Drainville? Appearing to be none, is there a motion to recommend to the HART Board of Directors approve items 4B and advance it to the full HART Board of Directors of the November 4th, 2024 meeting?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? If all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Likewise
Aye.
opposed? Okay, this motion passes unanimous. Thank you very much. Next item is item 4C for the committee to recommend to the HART Board of Directors to authorize the CEO to dispose of 13 40-foot Gillig low-floor fixed route buses and 2 non-revenue vehicles through competitive sale, public auction, insurance requirements, or disposal in a manner most advantageous to HART. There's a write-up and a proposed resolution for this action item. Mr. Drainville, you're recognized to provide an overview of the item.
So this committee action authorizes the vehicle's disposal process per the Federal Transit Administration award management requirements. 13 40-foot Gillig low floors, fixed route buses, and 1 non-revenue vehicle have been reached the end of their useful lives in accordance with the guidelines by the FTA. 1 non-revenue vehicle incurred a total loss due to an accident. HART requested the FDA concurrence to dispose of this 2021 Chevrolet Equinox that occurred a total casualty loss, and this was approved by the FDA. So all that means is any federal interest that was left on that purchase, we would have to reinvest that monies back into a capital.
Okay. I'm sure Ms. had a chance to take a look at the vehicles that are involved, the list in the backup. Anybody have any questions or comments of Mr. Drainville or staff? Okay. Is there a motion then to recommend to the HART Board of Directors approve item 4C in advance to the full HART Board of Directors at the November 4th meeting for the disposition of the vehicles?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion on the motion? Appearing to be none. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is a committee action item for presentation to the full board by the committee for recommendation on the approval by the full board of directors to recommend the HART Board of Directors approve discontinuation of paper fares. Mr. Drainville, you're recognized to provide an overview of the item and to introduce the presentation.
This action item is a follow-up to an action that the board approved in July for staff to perform outreach for possible changes to the fare policy. Mr. Justin Willits, Director of Planning and Scheduling, and Ms. Laura Izzo, Director of Financial Operations, will present. Mr. Willits, you are recognized to present.
Ms. Izzo is going to introduce the item and then transition to me. Thanks.
Good morning. Good morning, Director Schuessler and members of the committee. This presentation will be on the HART fare policy changes. I am introducing it. I'm going to pass it on to Justin. Jackie Hollow will follow up with some marketing topics, and then I'll wrap it up.
All right. Good morning, Justin Willits, Director of Planning and Scheduling. Ms. Haldo is out sick, so I'll take her slides. She's got a script for me, so I'll move through this and pass it back to Ms. Izzo. Just to update you on the timeline, it was already touched on, but in July we were given approval to go to outreach and public hearings. We started our work at that point, and from August to September, we conducted a fare equity analysis, evaluated impacts, developed mitigation strategies, conducted public outreach and hearings, and we are now approaching November. where we'll present the new fare structure related to the paper fare cards and present the findings to the board to then initiate that in January. So a Title VI fare equity analysis is an assessment conducted by a transit provider to determine whether fare changes, either increases or decreases, will result in a disparate impact on the Title VI protected populations. A disparate impact is a procedure or practice that appears to be neutral but has the effect of disproportionately excluding or adversely affecting members of a group identified by race, color, or national origin. Disproportionate burden is a procedure or practice that appears to be neutral but has the effect of adversely affecting low-income populations, greater when compared to other groups. HART is required to comply with all aspects of the U.S. DOT's FTA Circular 4702.1A-B, Title VI requirements and guidelines for FTA recipients. The FTA requires that recipients conduct a Title VI fare equity analysis prior to making any changes to its fare program. The fare equity analysis framework is 1, develop disparate impact policy and disproportionate burden policy with public participation, analyze the data, assess the impacts, modify the proposal if necessary. If there's a finding of disparate impacts, examine alternatives, and similar if you find a disproportionate burden, make those mitigation strategies. Title VI findings and mitigation strategies. Eliminating paper passes raises some concerns because it may impact low-income and unbanked riders. The mitigation strategies developed are to continuously conduct outreach regarding the elimination of paper fares and the convenience of Flamingo fares, provide training for HART riders on how to use those fares, allow a grace period where paper passes will still coexist with Flamingo fares, and transition unbanked riders from paper passes to physical plastic Flamingo cards. And this also applies to riders without smartphones, as that is also a way to pay. All right, public outreach comments. The important takeaway from this slide, and I'm going to start reading off of Ms. Haldo's comments now, so bear with me. I don't usually kind of just freewheel it here. The important takeaway from this slide is that the marketing team used public comments to build the supporting marketing strategy, leaning into comments from senior and lower income customers. Those were included, so I'm not going to read off each comment. So the marketing and outreach plan. This initiative is designed to educate and empower our lower income riders and seniors about the many benefits of HART Flamingo card usage. Our primary goals are twofold. First, we want to inform our community about how the Flamingo card can enhance their transit experience. And second, we aim to promote the purchase of smart cards and usage of the Flamingo app. I'll first walk you through our timeline and key phases. The first, the awareness phase from November 4th to 10th, will kick off with a press release highlighting the benefits of the Flamingo card, especially for seniors. We'll distribute informative flyers and palm cards at transit and community centers and launch a vibrant social media campaign featuring testimonials from users. Just make sure I'm on the right slide here. Next is the engagement phase from November 8th to 14th. During this week, our HART Street team will engage directly with customers at transit centers, providing materials and answering questions. We'll also set up sandwich boards with QR codes for easy access to online resources and update our customer service hold messages to promote Flamingo fares. Following that is the education phase from November 15th to 30th. We'll conduct training sessions at senior and community centers to help lower income and senior riders learn how to purchase smart cards and download the app. Retail locations will feature window clings and QR codes, and will implement transit advertising on buses and in shelters to raise awareness. Then we move to the community focus phase from December 1st to 15th. We'll send targeted email blasts to seniors and stakeholders with clear instructions on using Flamingo fares. Onboard announcements will keep riders informed, and we'll celebrate the holiday season with 12 days of transit giveaway featuring preloaded Flamingo cards. Additionally, we'll create dedicated landing page for frequently asked questions. Finally, the feedback and follow-up phase from December 16th to December 31st. We'll send reminder emails about the launch and special promotions and collect customer feedback through social media and email to ensure a smooth transition to Flamingo fares. And then paid advertising. All of our campaign efforts will be supported by a robust paid advertising strategy running from November 8th to January 15th. You can see the overview here, consisting of Google Ads, social media ads, YouTube pre-rolls, print advertising, local newspapers, senior magazines and community newsletters, local radio spots, and promotional events. The comprehensive advertising approach will enhance our outreach and ensure that our messages reach the community effectively. And then to successfully achieve fair policy goals, as stated, the modernization and simplification of fair payment to improve the customer experience. Those objectives eliminate paper fares, improve service consistency through boarding time, reducing the time it takes passengers to get on board, speeding up operations, improving customer service and employee experience to better have predictable, reliable delivery service. And that covers the operational efficiency bullet as well, excuse me. And I think this is
Yes.
when I will transition back to Ms. Izzo. Thank you. I'll take any questions at any time. The staff that performed the analysis is available in the audience as well.
This slide represents our current fare product list, which is paper, cash, and flamingo fares. And this is an example of a paper pass. I just wanted to have it in here. It's not really paper. It's slightly laminated, but it still is a little bit flimsy. This is what we are proposing eliminating. The paper passes and the e-fares have coexisted since the introduction of flamingo fares. But the proposal is that paper passes will be discontinued in favor of flamingo fares after January 5th, 2025. Cash will continue to be accepted. The tap-to-pay debit credit cards, i.e. physical cards and e-wallets, will continue to be accepted. And when using flamingo-branded smart cards or debit credit cards, fare capping will still be available. So next slide, please. So the recommendation is that the HART Board of Directors approve the discontinuation of paper passes. And if anybody has any questions, we're here to answer them.
Okay, thank you thank you very much for the presentation. Does any members of the committee have any questions or comments for staff on this presentation? Ms. Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say thank you for the information. We asked for it last time we met and have a very thorough process that I think I'm comfortable with as we move forward, and anything else we can do as well as a board. Thank you.
Any other comment? Mr. Hartfield, any comment? Okay. All right, appearing to be none, is there a motion to recommend to the HART Board of Directors approval item 5A in advance to the full HART Board meeting, full HART Board of Directors for the November 4th, 2024 meeting? We have a motion, we have a second. Motion is second. Any discussion on the motion? Appearing to be none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Like side opposed. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. You guys, this has been a long time coming, and you worked very hard to get this far, and it's a lot of hard work. It's good to see it. Mr. Dray, next on the agenda is our procurement monitoring. Mr. Drainville, you're recognized to share any updates on the procuring monitoring reports.
Thank you, Chair. Starting off with sole source, there have been no sole sources added since the September 9th Finance and Audit Committee. Moving on to task orders, the Basic Transit Infrastructure, or BTI task orders report. One BTI construction task order was awarded since the September 9th Finance and Audit. It was issued to AJ General Construction Services for the construction of bus stop, shelter, and landing pads at 21st Avenue and 40th Street. $1,339,526.28 in task orders have been issued, with $3,660,473.72 remaining on the board awarded not to exceed $5 million. For the BTI, or Basic Transit Infrastructure A&E Design Services Task Order Report, one BTI A&E Design Services Task Order amendment has been issued since the August 5th Board of Directors meeting. A task order amendment was issued to Kemley Horn and Associates to revise the floor plan on the task order issued for design service at the Operations Control Center, or OCC expansion. $381,739.39 in task orders have been issued, with $1,618,260.61 remaining on the board awarded not to exceed $2 million. And then notice of solicitations, solicitation for VMware subscription renewal, a software that enables you to run multiple servers, software, and appliances with a single machine rather than individual units for each task. The result is a savings on the purchase of a new service and a savings on the power it takes to run the additional service. And that concludes my procurement update.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the procurement monitoring? Okay, moving forward, information item number 7. Employee retirement plan update. The final report of the meeting is a follow-up to the previous meetings, the employee retirement plan update, which was actually presented by Brenda Bailey. Ms. Bailey, you are recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so this update is in response to the public comment from the last board meeting. Before you, you should have a timeline that I'll get into. For context, I did want to note that HART participates in the Florida Retirement System Plan. So this 457 that was raised as an issue is an elective and a secondary source of retirement income. But looking at the timeline, in May 18, 1986, the HART's 457 retirement account was established with Hartford. In June 2003, the contract associated with that retirement account was amended. And when it was amended, the language that, one paragraph from that contract noted that the effect of a contract discontinuance, Section 8, general account values, specifically stated that the contract owner, being HART, specifically agreed that the company, Hartford at the time, had the absolute right to pay the balance at discontinuance in 6 equal installments plus any interest annually over a period of 5 years. In 2012, Hartford sold those retirement accounts to Mass Mutuals. In 2020, Empower acquired those retirement accounts from Mass Mutual. In 2020, the HR manager at the time, no longer with HART, under the authorization of the leadership at that time, identified issues with the current 457 plan with Empower and was authorized to actually find a new plan, and that's how we got here. So in August 29th, 2023, a notice was issued to the employees that, with respect to the 459 retirement plan, that the plan was to transition from Empower to Mission Square. And in that notice from HART, it specifically stated, your savings at Empower will be transferred automatically into similar funds at Mission Square. After that transition period is complete, you'll be able to make any changes to your investments. If you have a balance in the general account on November 3rd, the assets in this fund will transfer over a period of 5 years. 1/6 of your balance will transfer 30 days after the transition date, and the remaining balance will transfer annually to the Mission Square account on the anniversary of the original transition date. It goes on to state the initial payment date. It also talks about what happens with future contributions. In September of 2023, there were several 457 retirement plan transition meetings for employees. There were 3 in September 2023 that was offered in person. There were 3 that were also offered virtually, 3 different sessions that were offered virtually. And these presentations remained to this day online, accessible to each employee on our ADP employee portal. Now, the number of employees that actually attended these sessions was about 45 employees. Even though at the time before the transition, there were about 467 employees that were actually participating in that general fund. So on November 13th, 2023, that was the date of the transition from where the plan moved from Empower to Mission Square. And at that time, there were about 443 employees that were still in that general fund. So about 24 employees actually moved their funds out of the general fund account to avoid any of the issues. Now, the value of that entire retirement account is about $7 million. $7,192,419. To date, they have been, on December 6, 2023, that was the initial 20% that was paid out, or they were the employees who were affected or who participated in this general fund, they were eligible for the first initial payout, which was 20%. And then this upcoming December 6, 2024, they'll be eligible for the next 20%. So as of December 6, 2024, they should have about 40% of their retirement account from that 457. So specifically at the board meeting, and every December 6th, leading up to 2027, they should be eligible for another 20% of that account. So I wanted to touch on some specific comments raised in the last board meeting. One of the first comments was that the clause in the contract was overlooked during transition to Mission Square. The transition moved forward without fully informing employees about the impact. But as you can see, that's not true. The provision was identified early and communicated to employees for a significant period of time prior to the transition, specifically about 3 months prior to the transition. Employees received notice of this in writing in August 2023. They also received written communication dating back to September 2023, where they were also invited to attend these informational sessions to answer questions, concerns, or provide any clarity. 3 in-person sessions were conducted in September 2023. 3 virtual sessions were offered in September 2023, and the material, as stated previously, remains accessible to each employee. Another comment was that we are not blaming Empower. They are simply enforcing their contract. HART did not do their due diligence in thoroughly reviewing this contract and clearly communicating the impact to employees. That comment, as previously noted, is also untrue, unfair. HART met their duty to provide adequate notice to employees regarding the impact of this transition. There was another comment where they noted that we strongly urge HART to collaborate with Empower to find a resolution, whether that means renegotiating or signing a new contract with Empower. And in response to that, I would state that HART is not in custody, control, nor possession of the funds held by Empower. In fact, as previously noted, the 2003 contract amendment gave Empower the absolute right to proceed in this manner. HART, by way of HR, as well as my internal legal team, as well as our broker, we've all taken all the steps that we can to try to mitigate these issues and demand payouts for these affected employees. At this time, I think HART had a duty to give notice to those employees that were impacted as a result of the transition, and we proved that we have done so. Although unfortunate, and although we empathize with these employees who failed to transfer their funds in time, I think in the event that they were to bring any claim against HART, I think they would be unsuccessful in showing that HART was at fault, considering that HART gave them adequate notice and provided them with several means and opportunities to do so. Any discussions to make these employees whole in the form of paying out the $7.1 million in advance of the payouts from Empower would definitely not be at the recommendation of council. For many reasons, including that I think it's a potential violation of your HART board policy, section 140.02, subsection 3, as well as the inability and likely undue burden on HART to ensure that as these employees as they are made whole from Empower, it's going to be hard for HART to kind of track down how to make themselves whole. So if we pay out this initial 7.1, for the next 4 years, these employees will continue to receive, their funds in 20% increments. So if we pay this out right now, they're still getting their money. So the question is, how does HART how are we made whole at the end of it? But HART's board's policy specifically prohibits board involvement, both individually and collectively in normal employer-employee relationships. I think this is similar to employees missing deadlines as it relates to our benefits enrollment. And in the event that an employee misses that deadline, I think you'll be setting a dangerous precedent of them running in here, and making this claim for the need for support from this board in the same manner. So I think we need to be concerned with the manner in which we proceed on this issue. I think the employees made mention of being misled by experts hired by HART to represent their employees' best interests during the transition. Personally, I have requested proof documentation to support these claims, but have not been provided with any of them. I had one instance where an employee who made that claim of being misled, made the claim of actually being misled in a phone conversation with the broker. I communicated that with the broker. The broker was able to pull phone calls, and that claim was determined to have been unsubstantiated. So, in the future, I think if any of the employees that continue to claim that they have been misled, if they can prove that, if they have any adequate documentation, we recommend that they confer with the insurance commission. But in addition, if they need assistance, I think my team will be more than willing to continue to help support, demand any kind of anything that we can to try to alleviate them with respect to this issue. But moving forward, I think it's definitely a dangerous precedent for the board to kind of take this up as an issue. And I think it is clear that HART met its burden as it relates to this issue. The duty, I think once HART gave notice, was no longer on HART and definitely on that employee or on the employees affected.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Please.
Thank you very much for your overview and quickly providing information as it relates to the open items from last time we met. Just a few questions. When we notified employees, that would be the 447 of them, 467? Is that the total number?
Correct, prior to transition.
Right. So did they receive an email specific to their name, or did they get a blast email?
I think I'm going to have to defer to HR.
Good morning. Daniel Brito, Director of Human Resources. Anytime we make notification or we send notices to employee, every employee that is employed by HART has a personal email. So they would receive a HART email from us. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. So the email was sent to them directly?
Notification was sent to them directly by the 457 plan. We sent an email notifying them of the informational sessions. So they would have been noticed twice, once by us, the employer, and then once by Empower.
Okay, thank you. I have a few more questions.
Sure.
Do we still have 5 people remaining with this issue, or is it 443? I had taken notes from last time, there were only 5 that were impacted.
So only 5 made a claim, were claiming the issue, but taking a further deep dive, there are actually 443 people that are impacted.
Okay, that's a different number from what I initially heard last time. So 443 people remain with the current plan from Empower, and is there any way for our legal team, to get involved and to escalate this situation? I mean, this is not about if it was right or wrong or responsive or not non-responsive. It's just about making sure people have access to the dollars that have already been sent over to Empower. So the fact that $7 million is owed is because they received the dollars, right? Is that my understanding?
I think I need clarification. So the problem here is that Empower has that provision in that contract that says that they have the absolute right to do what they want to do. I have personally gotten on the phone with Empower, and so has, the HR team as well. And they go back to the same issue. So while there are only maybe 5 people raising a claim for the funds or demanding release of their funds, Empower is refusing to do so because they feel like they're setting a dangerous precedent as well. So if they pay out on the 5, they'd be more than likely eligible to do the same for the remaining 438. So because of that provision, they're not willing to budge at all. And we've made demands. And we're also, with respect to the money, HART is not necessarily in privity. So we don't hold the funds, we don't have any ownership to the funds, so the employees personally need to make the claim. And I think that's why I'm insisting that if they have any issues, they might need to take it up with the insurance commission.
Okay, and the 5 people actually 4 people that were in the meeting last week, did we advise them to take it up with the commission, or is there, even though we passed the dollars over to Empower, and they are regulating the plan based on what we agreed to from a contract standpoint, I'm just wanting to know if I think they did go to the insurance company, and what were they told?
The 5?
Right.
They were told they were told that they can only get what the contract allows, which would be the same notice that HART gave them. Hey, you need to move your funds by this date. And if you fail to do so, then your account will be paid out, or you'll be able to access this amount in this specified time. So you'll be able to access the first 20% December 6, 2023, and then you'll be able to access 20% every December 6 for the next 5 years. Empower has been consistent with the same information or notice that we gave them. So the employees that missed the deadline, they have not budged, and they refuse to do so. So I think the next step for the employees affected would be reaching out to the insurance commission to see if they have any available options. But as it relates to HART, I don't think it's something that the board should take up. I think it's outside of the board's purview. I think your own board policy kind of restricts you and limits your ability to do so. While we sympathize with them, I think we remain open to try to help them as best as we can in trying to navigate this. But I think we also run the risk, I think, by the time that they finally get to a resolution in the next 3 years, I think they would have already been paid out according to this contract.
Okay. Thank you. In regards to HART's policy not to engage once we handed over the dollars, I'm concerned with 467 people were advised and 443 people didn't make any movement or change. Is that what I understand?
Yes, that's correct. And I don't want to say that's typical, but for the majority of employees, they feel as if sometimes just leaving their money there would be in their best interest. It's difficult sometimes for HR to get participation with our employees to engage in those kinds of conversations. So therefore, we have those informational sessions, we have those virtual sessions to sort of attract employees to come out, ask questions, hear their comments so that we can answer those questions to avoid these kinds of situations. But unfortunately, if an employee does not reach out to us and say, I have a question about this particular matter, then we're under the assumption that they've acknowledged and understand what's going to be happening.
Okay. So with 45 people attending of the 467, I think that's a significant gap of the information that's provided. Is that what I understand? 45 people attended the session?
No. 45 people moved their money
Okay.
from,
Also, I mean, that's also what I've gathered as well. A limited number of employees attended the informational sessions as well. But again, that's also a choice, and I think we have to keep that in mind.
Mr. King?
Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Bailey, thank you, Chair. Ms. Bailey, I know this is a very, very sensitive and ticklish subject that you had to review and try and make just some determination about. I just have a couple of questions. The total number of people who enrolled in this program originally back under, what was it, Hartford, was how many? How many people have enrolled in it total?
that was our initial plan, so back in 1986.
Well, no, I mean, how many people are we talking about currently enrolled?
Oh.
Total.
I think it's 447.
443 is what I have.
443.
Okay, and out of that, 45 people actually took advantage of the opportunity to move their funds as they were being advised to do?
Correct.
Okay, and they had a certain window to do that within? Okay, and out of the remaining 400 or so, 4 or 5 have actually, run into this problem immediately. So this is going to be an ongoing problem over time?
Correct. These are the 4 or 5 that have retired recently.
And the total amount of money currently invested in the plan is about $7 million?
Correct, 7 point some odd.
7,192,419.
Okay. Now, this was kind of an enrollment in a payroll deduction plan?
Yes,
And
correct.
did none of this money ever pass through HART's hands, is that correct?
Correct.
correct.
Okay.
Goes directly to the fund.
All right, so, and we have no role in promoting or advising people to enroll or not enroll in this plan.
Correct.
That is
So we're under no duty at the present time to actually do anything to fix this problem that's affecting these other people.
Correct.
Okay. Empower bought out Hartford, is that correct?
Mass Mutual bought out Hartford.
Mass
and then-
Mutual originally bought out, and then Power came in behind that?
Correct.
Interesting, okay. Basically, Empower is an annuity company, is that correct?
Yes,
So all these funds are invested in annuities,
correct.
Correct.
and there's no early payout or early cash-out provision of any kind?
Not that we're aware of, based on this contract that we entered
Okay, where they
into.
would agree to take a percentage less than what their face amount is? Okay,
We've had Gallagher, who was our
Hey.
consultant,
Okay.
reach out to them and propose, what remedies can we offer? And basically, they were under the same premise. If we opened up for these 4 employees, we'd be opening the floodgates for any other participant in any of our funds. So they didn't want to set that precedent.
okay, and Ms. Bailey, in the course of conducting your review, did you find any indication of any material misrepresentation on the part of a third party?
To date, no.
Okay, thank you, those are all my questions.
Okay. Gary, did you have any questions? I guess not. I had one. In the beginning of your presentation today, you talked about the relationship between the 457 and the FRS. What was that again?
HART participates in the FRS, and this 457 is the secondary source. So it's an elective option, so not every employee would participate. Not sure if,
Okay, no, I hadn't heard the reference to FRS before. So I don't see what HART could do. I mean, if we try to make these people whole, you're talking about everybody's going to get whole eventually. They're guaranteed investment plus, I don't know, what's the annual kick?
So actually, that's a great question. The reason we actually decided to move from Empower to Mission Square was simply because we were being charged about 135 basis points above the market average. So when this plan was originally in place with Empower, we were paying 2.1%, though the participants were. And as a result of going to Mission Square, that reduced that number by 180 basis points. So there was a substantial savings on the participants' part. So this was a financial decision, not only benefited the employees, but it was a financial decision that would value their portfolios long-term.
What about their growth? Is there any kind of guaranteed growth?
No, we don't get involved in the guaranteed
No, I
growth.
mean.
It's based
no.
on,
With between Empower, they're going to get 20% every year, okay? There's no growth involved with any of that? There's no promise of an investment growth?
so when you decide to invest in a particular plan, there are different tiers based on, it's typically on age, right? You're a young participant, you tend to be in a higher, more aggressive growth plan. So the employees pick those particular plans that are more suited to their tolerance for
Okay.
investment. So it's individual. We don't lay out those terms. It's up to the employee to pick which plan they're interested in participating based on their long-term.
But generally speaking, they'll be kept whole between now and then.
Oh, sure. Are you referring to the distributions of 20%
Yeah.
over the 5 years? Yes. By keeping your funds in that plan for another 5 years, it results in an increase in.
Well, ultimately, I mean, nobody's joined the plan in years, correct? Okay, so the final distribution will be in, what, 2027?
Yes.
And then this whole problem will disappear. Okay. I don't, and I'm not speaking for everybody on the committee, but I don't see what HART can do. Not only is it legal precedent, I imagine if we were to come out and say, okay, we'll cover you for this, we're going to open up all kinds of ERISA issues that I don't even think anybody's even looked at this point. How would we track it? How would, it's a Pandora's box that I don't think we have a responsibility to open.
And I'm going to piggyback on what Brenda just said. Assuming that we were to do that, well, what guarantees do we have that those distributions that are being made to the employees would be returned to us?
Right, we'd have no way to recoup it for HART.
So there's no clawback, and there's no way of getting those funds back, so.
So, but to finish on my thought, I don't, again, this was just informational stuff, informational details for us as a committee, and then we're not going to do anything in particular I don't think we should do anything, at least for the board. Presentation will be made to the full board?
Correct.
Okay, so that we'll be going from there. Mr. King, you're recognized.
Actually, Chair, I can think of only one possible remedy, and I hazard to mention it, because I think that the implications going forward are just too difficult to consider. If we took an assignment of benefit from those individuals who've been directly affected by this, we would basically be stepping into their shoes, paying them out whole up front, and then getting repaid over 5 years by Empower. But I think it opens the doors to too many other things to make that even something we could consider. I mean, we don't have a duty to even do that. But if we did that, we would be opening the doors to things that we don't want to open. It would be opening Pandora's box,
As I
essentially.
said. Well, we pay
Yeah.
attorneys for their opinions, and they're giving us their opinion. Mr. Knight.
And again, thanks for the presentation. I feel that with this, and have some experience on this type of thing, being from a previous company, I think that it would be wise to get this information in writing as soon as possible to the board, so we don't come into the meeting, the full board meeting, and trying to go through all this. Give us time to look at things. I do agree with everybody on things about paying out something like this for a retirement or whatever. because the money is somewhere, even though there's different things, as long as there's provisions there that nobody else can get into, that it don't seem right, you know, protect the future employees in the saving part, but get us information so we can be better versed. So when you look at these things, so I agree, once you hear or have things to look over, that everybody can make a better sound decision on that. And no, I don't think the board want to take over, micromanage anything, shouldn't have to. But we need the information early on and not the day of the meeting, you know, so everybody can look at it and they can see. And I think it'll make a better decision. So at this point, I would move to, you know, information prepared for us for the general meeting and pass it on. Everybody on the board can look at it. So we don't want to get involved.
To your point, you've been having individual meetings with all board members, correct?
Only the ones that have scheduled them. And they started with you Friday, so there's a number of board members scheduled up until the board meeting.
Okay. To your point, that'll happen. They'll get that information prior to the board meeting. Okay. Any other comments or discussions on this issue? Thanks, guys. This is a trip down memory lane that nobody really wanted to do, but it's good information. Okay, this concludes the regular business. Any old business? Any new business? Thank you, staff. It's been a long morning, but anyway, this meeting is adjourned.